Hey guys, you knew that. I'm in Florida, you're not. I'm here to present my project. To begin, here's a random slide that I had to do in the middle of the presentation. The question at hand is, what were his opinions on reduced investments? John Maynard Keynes was not a fan of that. Keynes' whole theory, completely the opposite of reduced investments. Keynes was actually a huge fan of what is known as decreasing savings. He kind of believed two things. He outlined this in one of his theories. Basically what he said is, the more people save, the less good it is for our economy. Because when savings go up, there's less output. And what that means for us is that we're going closer towards another depression. If people invest, although it means that we're more likely to go into a deficit, it's actually better for us because that's the complete opposite way of a depression. So he wanted to increase investments because that's more money circulating in our economy, and he wanted to fully decrease savings because in his mind, savings were bad. Interpretation of policy. So one of the first countries to actively start using fiscal and later monetary policy was 1960s and 70s Canada. Although some countries were starting to adopt it, Canada adopted fiscal and monetary policy way early on. First fiscal. They did it to monitor things like domestic output and employment. Domestic output and unemployment have always been an issue and needed to monitor it somehow, and this theory's pretty good. They adopted it. A lot of people started arguing that Keynes' principles and theories are actually more likely to harm our economy rather than heal it. In the 1980s, like early 80s, Canada wasn't in that good of a state, so they were kind of just like, oh, we've been using this economic policy, so that has to be it. That's the reason why we're flopping so hard. But it's not. And it wasn't even just economists saying this, it was people who have heavy influences in politics too. Like you have people from many different sides and many different communities coming in and just basically saying, look, Keynes' principle isn't working. Economists in the mid-1970s and early 1980s criticized the theory and blamed it for high unemployment and inflation rate. I get it, because if your economy's going to hell and you just started using a new theory and now you're seeing a bunch of bad side effects, you would probably think that it's from the theory, which I guess a good metaphor for that is any illness. Like you start using a new product and then all of your hair starts falling out and you're like, oh my god, I must have caught something, but in reality you're just balding. Yep. The theory was believed to only have positive short-term effects and catastrophically long ones. Enough for that. So Keynesians believed that hardships were instead attributed to events that were impossible for the nation's regulations to control. They believed that the things that were happening at the time, which kind of like shot down their economy, like really, really high oil prices apparently, were actually not because of the theory, which I agree, but were actually just because of other things going around in the world. I mean, you have to take that into consideration because it's not just our world, our economy. We live in a world with many other nations and we rely on them for exports and imports to help make our economy better and to help get the resources that we need. So if they're cooperating or if we can't work with them for some reason, which was most likely one of the reasons I couldn't find anything about it online, it's probably because of that. Oh yeah, and also people who believed in Keynes' policy, and people still believe in it today, and they still have the same thought too. It was a popular belief that his policy was really the only thing, like one of the only things keeping our economy from going back into another recession or even a Great Depression. People who followed Keynes' policy were very serious about it and they loved it, but meanwhile it had a lot of criticizers too who absolutely hated it and wanted it to burn. Like if it was a person, they would stab it multiple times on the street kind of thing, you know? Deficit problems. If you didn't know this, most governments have deficit problems. Canada's currently in a deficit, the US is currently in a deficit, but what is a deficit, you ask? Well, let me tell you. So basically, a deficit is debt. It's a nation's debt. How does deficit affect Keynes' theory? Well, let me explain. Fiscal policy relies on the government having money and the people having money before you can even intervene. So when you have a deficit and the government doesn't have a lot of money and no one has a lot of money, you can't really apply a theory that involves a lot of money because it doesn't work like that. It doesn't, like it does for a bit. The government of Canada applied fiscal policy for a while, and then they had to remove it because the deficit got in the way. Modern day Canada still uses both fiscal and monetary policies. Monetary more so than fiscal. So the reason that Canada uses monetary policies more than fiscal policies, but they still use fiscal a lot, is just because of efficiency. In the past, Canada used to use fiscal policies a lot, you know, fiddle with the taxes, make things happen. But it's not as efficient as monetary, because monetary, you just raise those rates up and down, and everything's chill, everything's great. Whereas with fiscal policies, you gotta go. You gotta mess with people's taxes, which takes a while. People complain. Also, another reason we use monetary more than fiscal is because of our primarily, like, although our prime minister is a liberal, I guess Stephen Harper kind of affected things a lot, and like Doug Ford right now too. Like, we have a lot of conservatives. It's just like a primarily conservative standpoint and viewpoint. So they kind of like no more taxes because a conservative ideology, and they were like, okay, we can use this policy. Just mess with the interest rate, see what happens. Right? Now, Justin Trudeau actually wanted to bring in a fiscal budget, and he did. Well, the theory and practice. The theory is used in many economies. Where in the world right now are these policies being used to help fix economy? To begin, China with the coronavirus and South Korea with the coronavirus. Both of these countries have implemented a fiscal policy in order to help monitor the economic backlash that they're facing. And then another example is fiscal policy versus recession in Japan. As of a couple of weeks ago, actually before Corona, Japan was already headed towards a recession and their economy was not doing very well. So they actually implemented fiscal policy in order to try and salvage their economy, and then Corona came in and that kind of just wrecked it even more. They're currently using fiscal policy. Canada right now is using fiscal policy. And then monetary policy. So monetary policy is used in a lot of different countries and a lot of different places. I literally spent so long trying to figure out one specific example, but it was just like, yeah, it's used everywhere. And I was like, yeah, that's great, that's not helping me. And that's it for our presentation. If you have any questions, don't ask me because I won't pick up my phone. We have references. Oh my god, the sun is coming up.